And I'm going to call this meeting to order. Looking around, we do in fact have a quorum, and I'd ask that we go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the republic for which it stands, one nation. You remain standing for a moment of silent prayer and reflection. Thank you. Please be seated. This time we're going to do the student-led version of the vision statement, mission statement, and WISD goals. I'm going to go ahead and read the vision statement, which is empowering and inspiring all students to achieve their full potential. Our mission statement is Wimberley ISD is dedicated to excellence in education that fosters a culture of kindness and respect, creates lifelong learners, and empowers students to make a positive impact in their community. We believe that everything that we do should help ensure the success of all of our students. As educators, we maximize class time in an engaging and challenging way. Our teachers are personally invested in our students. Students in Wimberley are committed to community service, and the community supports students in return. The quality public Wimberley ISD education drives the future of a successful Texas. As a district, we strive to meet the needs of the whole child, academically, emotionally, and socially. Wimberley ISD provides the foundation to create engaged citizens who become lifelong learners. All of our children, parents, faculty, and staff should be treated with kindness and respect. We're committed to excellence in all we do. The WISD goal is to achieve excellence in education, foster a culture of kindness and respect, create lifelong learners, and make a positive community impact. Moving into our agenda, the first item on our regular agenda is special recognitions. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Dwayne York.
Yes, so we had an awesome graduation, and it is because we work together as a strong team. I am so proud of our custodial, our maintenance staff. Our technology team was awesome. Jordan's here with us today, so is Alan. But I also want to thank Jason Valentine and Ryan Wilkes. I've never seen so many measuring tapes up in the stands. We marked off blue areas, yellow areas. I want to thank our parents. They were very cordial. They understood social distancing, and especially our kids. Our kids did an awesome job, and so I'm just really proud of all of them. But I really do want to recognize the custodial maintenance and technology teams, because without them, this would have been, well, it could have been impossible. We worked together for several days to get this rolling. So I just cannot thank you guys enough. I really do appreciate it.
All right. Great job. It was a fantastic event, and we're really proud of our staff for pulling it off. Next item on our agenda is the public comment. These were submitted online, and I believe we have one public comment. And I'm going to ask Alan to read that, please.
Yeah, Alan Brugman, Communications Officer. I'm going to be representing the one comment that was posted online and read it out loud. It is from Shannon Caldwell. She says, quote, I would like to say that I hope WISD plans to open school and hold all classes in person with remote options for those in high-risk categories. I think the benefits of in-class teaching and interaction outweigh the potential risks if reasonable measures such as sanitizing and maybe masks are utilized. Again, including an option for those who may need to stay home, but allowing others to return. And that was all the public comments we received.
Thank you, Alan. Moving on down to item number 3 is our consent agenda. And I'm going to ask if we have a motion.
I would move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand. Dottie, that's a unanimous decision approving. Next, we're going to move down to our bond update. Mr. Bob Farmer.
Okay, thank you. Earlier this evening, a few of the board members had an opportunity to tour the new primary school. As you can see, the final finishes are underway, ceiling tiles, millwork, flooring, kind of working their way from the back out the front of the building. So things are going pretty well out there. Today, we completed the installation of the drip line for the on-site sewer facility. We have manifolds to attach, final connections, topsoil, and then grass to put over the top of that drip field. But it's going along pretty nicely. Project was about 87% complete at the end of May, which is right on track of where it should be financially compared to the schedule. So right now, it looks like things are at hand. We completed a bore under Winter's Mill last week. They are repositioning the boring machine, and we'll start to bore under 12 and under Champion's Circle over the next week and a half. We should finally have water at that time. So we've been surviving with the existing well and hauling water in for all that construction. At Danforth, they're a couple weeks ahead of the primary school. They're really in their very final stages. A little bit of flooring to do. They're doing trim out work. Lockers arrived today, so that's something we've been waiting on. They're doing all the exterior cleanup, so I don't see any issues at all at Danforth. They seem to be ahead of the primary school. I've listed Scudder under Danforth because it's the same contractor. Last Wednesday, I think, we had a special called board meeting to approve a GMP for the repurpose of Scudder. That work is well underway with demolition. We have a lot to do, but we plan to be complete prior to the start of school for that job. The only thing remaining at the ag barn is the cattle pens. I did not have a chance to go over there today, but I expect that work should be completed within the next week or so. A couple other bond projects. I did want to bring up one thing, the athletic storage building. In discussion with Coach Warren, he feels that the area across the creek behind Subway would work for his purposes. So right now, that's going to be the recommended spot for that. We'll build as much as we can for the budget, and we'll plan it such that it could be expanded in the future. It's a nice flat property, and it seems to be the least expensive place for us to build that storage building. We still have some work to do in the stadium this summer. We're supposed to get the drawings midweek this week. It's just a little bit of widening of some sidewalks and some pinch points, but hopefully we'll be able to get that work done. I think that covers everything for my report, unless anybody has any questions.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind. Is there a drive to that store, where that storage shed's going to be, or are you going to make a drive to it, or how are they going to get in and out of there?
They'll get in and out of it from the street side, but we'll have to create a separate entrance into the stadium for them to get in and out of, without having to go all the way around Danforth.
Okay.
There's not a real good solution for crossing that creek right now, but it's something we can look into for the future.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, we're going to move down to item number 5 on our agenda, which is titled Purchase of Bus. And I think we have Owen here.
Yes, so I've got Owen here tonight, and
Thank you, Bob.
we did, I reported to you guys that we did have a bus accident. And so I'm going to let Owen explain. We've got insurance, we've got a deductible, and what that settle up would be to purchase a new bus.
Okay. Just a little history. I don't know if any of y'all do recall, but back in, actually that's supposed to be March, I'm sorry. Back in March, before spring break, we did have a bus accident up on 281. That resulted in that bus being unrepairable. It was twisted, the cab was twisted, and both TASB and two body shops estimators both agreed, it's not a good idea to repair this. So TASB went and ended up totaling the bus out at its value at the time. So that was about 80% of what it cost us. And so the numbers, basically we got paid off $66,940, and cost of a new bus is going to be $106,780. So we're going to be out of a pocket expense of $39,840. And I'm asking if we can purchase that bus to replace that one that we lost.
So Owen, is the purchase of the bus that we're getting comparable or larger than the one we lost?
Identical. It'll be outfitted identical to what we lost. Same passenger count, seat belts, ACs, cameras, just an identical bus. But that was a 2018 that we lost, and this will be a 21.
And so when Moises and I started looking at what money we have available after this year settles out, we've got some estimates. Moises is fixing to do a presentation. A lot of this presentation you've seen. And so we don't know what the delivery time will be if we were to tell them today to...
We're roughly looking at 3 months, and that's rough until we actually order it. Then we can have, closer delivery date.
So I would like to recommend that that we go ahead and give them the okay to get this bus here as soon as possible, especially with the unknown of what does bus capacity look like next year, and we really need this bus. And so to go ahead and purchase it, and if we end up having to go into fund balance after the end of this year, that would be a one-time expenditure. That's why you do, purchase things out of fund balance. I think at this point in time, we possibly have the money to cover it in this year's budget, but given some large ticket items, So during this presentation that Moises is going to be giving you here in a couple of minutes, we do not have those final numbers. We won't until probably July, and they'll be preliminary. And so I just think that we need to go ahead and give the okay to get this thing purchased, get it delivered as soon as possible. The sooner we can get it back in the fleet, the better off we're going to be.
Can I ask a couple of questions, if you don't mind? Did we not realize any savings when we stopped busing kids around? I mean, was there some savings in there?
Definitely.
Okay.
It's one of the things I'm going to discuss.
Okay. All right. And is one bus enough? I mean, I'm really worried about the bus lines and kids sitting in people's laps. And I mean, I've asked for a report, and then the world kind of went crazy. And I'd like to see more about that, talk more about that. So
Yes, I definitely believe. Of course, I think in August, I don't know what the guidelines are going to be.
right.
Hopefully, we can start normal.
Yeah.
With a little more precaution, But if we could get this bus replaced, I think we'd be in a good spot.
Okay.
So we have a webinar, if you will, a Zoom meeting with the commissioner, and his number one goal tomorrow, we're being told, is to tell us what the preliminary guidelines are for reopening school. And so what does that look like? I mean, we're talking, could it look different in number of kids in a classroom, number of kids in transportation? Because at this point, all these unknowns are going to affect our budget one way or the other. And so we really need his guidance ASAP. We were told that the governor was possibly going to give some kind of announcement today. Maybe that's been moved to tomorrow at around 2, just before the commissioners' webinar at 3. That's what we're hoping anyway.
Well, do you have a preliminary plan if they say you can run the bus, but you have to have social distancing on the bus and
Yeah,
all
I
that
mean,
craziness?
It's all gonna depend on the number
Yes.
or the spacing.
So, when the bus that we lost, wasn't it an activity bus?
No, it was a regular school
It
bus
was a
that
regular
was
route?
used on activities. Yeah, the majority of our regular buses are used for multi-purpose.
It didn't have the wrap on it?
No,
Okay.
no, it wasn't.
Yeah, I knew it didn't have the wrap on it, but I just,
So that bus was a 2018,
Yes,
and the bus that you priced out here is a 2021?
yes.
I've never bought a bus before, Owen, but I was wondering, I bet you researched the pros and cons of buying 2018 or 2019. Are they out there in the market? How much do they cost?
There's definitely some out there. My experience with used buses is not very good.
Somebody's getting rid of it for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because all schools need them, you know.
Now, I prefaced this by saying I've never bought a bus before.
We've done a little bit of that since I've been on the board, and I think we're better off buying new buses.
Plus, you're looking at retrofit for seatbelts, which is very,
That's-
very, very expensive.
That's-
And you would be looking for retrofit for air conditioning, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we've done that in the past, that requires a different alternator. It requires,
It's quite a few different things that you really have to pick. It's because each bus, most bus sales are gathered around the Oklahoma area, and a lot of those buses are spec for different states. So when you're looking, the first thing you need to look at is a bus that's spec for Texas State, for the state of Texas. And also, we implemented seatbelts a few years ago, and that's not widely across Texas, so that's something else we would need to research, and that'd be kind of difficult to find, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah, and don't hear my questions being contrary to the idea, just educational for me.
Yes, sir.
Along those lines, Owen, how many buses do we have, and what's the life expectancy of a bus?
Currently, we have 34 in service and use, and we're looking at a 15-year lifespan.
Okay. Can we run and operate those every day, or do we have some set aside for a contingency if one breaks down, filled out, or?
Yes, sir, we do. Especially with special needs, we have a backup for that. And then we also, a lot of it varies on our trips.
Yes,
But we always do ensure that we do have a backup, or we have a backup available, that's maybe in town or something that can be pulled and used.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Good questions.
Well, I'll make a motion to purchase the bus that Owen and Dwayne recommended to the board, and seeing what comes up over the next few months in our finances, that if we pull it from a reserve or able to pull it from savings from operations this year. I think that made a lot of sense.
We got a motion.
second?
And a second. Further discussion?
Can I just ask a really dumb question? Do you have agreed upon value on those buses? Is that how your insurance works? Is it an agreed upon value and then?
You talking about as far as what TASB values it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they take the year and the mileage, and that's when they come up with their payoff value.
Okay. So they give you, like I insure my ambulance is for an agreed upon value, which is really a guessing game, so, because you really want it valued really high.
Yes.
But that means if you wreck it, then it takes a lot to total it, so it's a,
And unfortunately, you know, something we did look into is that there's no kind of gap
Yes.
insurance or
Gap
anything like that.
insurance, TASB does not provide.
yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
We already received the payment from TASB, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
those
And-
funds are already.
Yes, those funds have already been received, that's
Yes.
66,940.
How do you
So
think
the
we ate
only-
barbecue tonight?
It's only part that we're waiting for, that we need to estimate now is how much we're gonna have savings. And that's another part that we can add on top of what we have already received.
Good discussion. So we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Raise your right hand. All right, unanimous, Dottie. Ellen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move down to reports. We got a health and safety report. I think that was sent via email. And then our next item, number B, is our CFO's report. Mr. Moises Santiago is here with us.
Yeah, okay, that's after this one. So this month, basically it's going, not as planned, but better than last year. We're still in line with, a little bit better with, compared to the previous year. Our fund balance is still doing a little bit better compared as last year at the same time. So we have total cash and investments, 36.3 million, and of that, 34% comes from the general, 47% comes from the general fund, and 34% from the capital projects fund. We are 75% of the budgeted year, and we have collected 98% of the total revenues. In taxes, in tax revenues, we have collected 100%, 100.03%. So we have already exceeded what we budgeted for in tax revenue. In the child nutrition program, we have collected 76.59%. Of that, we can add on top commodities that we need to record, which is basically a journal entry, so we can account for more revenue in there, but it has still not been journalized. We continue to provide meals through the Seamless Summer Option Program. Those are not part of this budget that the board adopts, since that is a separate program coded under a different fund. So it's not part of this budget, but we have to account for those expenditures as well. We are being reimbursed on the per meals that we are serving. So we are getting some reimbursements on those expenses that we are incurring. We will continue to serve meals until the end of the month of June. And on the debt service fund, we have collected 101.3% of what we budgeted for. We spent 1.8. Our next debt service payments are in August. The capital projects, we spent 21.5%, and we have earned more than $500,000 in interest revenues. We have, the state has already informed us of how much we were allocated for CARES funding. So we are, at the moment, are applying for that funding so that we are able to offset some of the expenditures that we have incurred as a result of the pandemic.
Where's that figure, that CARES figure?
182,000. Okay. Yes.
Ken, it's already been spent because FEMA did not come through with their 75%.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
On the proprietary funds, we do have net profits in all the three programs, 10,000, 40,000, 97,000 for each of the Scudder, Jacobs Well programs and Scudder tuition-based pre-K. And on current taxes, we have collected for the month 297,000, which is 0.93% of the levy, and which totals to about 98 of the total levy that we have collected as of the end of May. We have realized about 100.3% of the adopted budget. Compared to last year, we were at 98%. So we are a little bit under, well, about almost 1% over compared to previous year. That's the financials on that. And on the quarterly investments reports, it's been a pretty rough time. Pretty sure y'all have see on the news and stay up to date on how the market is doing and all that. So the good thing is that the government is stepping in to buy corporate bonds and putting out a surplus out there for those municipals and all that, so that indeed we are right now what we are focusing on is the focus of meeting our objectives in our portfolios, which is basically liquidity and safety. So the majority of our investments at this time are in tax pools and treasuries, as you can see there. The earnings average rate of return at this quarter is 1.38, which is mainly what the tax pools are doing. There we anticipate a slight decrease in the coming months in the tax pools. So at this point, we don't have any other options to invest in other type of investments. These are the most secure and liquefiable at this time, mainly because of our bond payments that we have to do on time and all that. So, and also, as we approach the end of the fiscal year, we are trying to, well, not end of the year with a negative cash there, so we want to have much reserves and cash available by the end of the year if we need to. Quarterly total earnings in this quarter were $152,000. We kept an average daily balance of $43.9 million in there. So that's the quarterly investments reports and the monthly financials. If you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes.
We're going to move down to item number C, Superintendent's Report. Mr. York.
Yes, so we have a preliminary 2020-21 budget assumptions. And so Moises has got a presentation for us. Probably the first 3 to 4, maybe 5 slides we have presented before. There are changes on one, and then there is a new slide. So I'm going to let Moises kind of go through this, and then I want to end up with a summary of issues that we're really considering as proposals for the 87th legislative session.
Okay, so before I go into the presentation, one of the items that you all approved was the budget amendment. In there, I included several items that we needed to adjust since we hadn't had an amendment in quite a while. I think the last one we had was back in December. So we need to adjust our projected revenues and come up with a more realistic revenues and expenditures budget as we near the end of the fiscal year. So part of those items that you all approved were some adjustments to the taxes, to interest revenues that we had anticipated. So since we collected more than 100% of the taxes, I adjusted those figures, increased the total revenue projections. But at the same time, since the economy is not doing too good, I had to reduce my interest earnings on that. So those kind of wash off right there by 55,000, increase and decrease of 55,000. All of this is in your board packet. There's a detail. They're all itemized in there, so just for your reference. At the same time, since our estate value came out higher, we had to reduce the estate allotment projection and also increase the recapture amount. So as you can see right there, our estate allotment, we had to reduce it by 119,000, but at the same time increase the recapture by 300,000. So the total, the net decrease in revenues is 95,000. Now in expenditures, we do have quite a bit of items here that I listed in there since we did budget for some positions that we did not fill out throughout the year. So we had those reserves in there that we used to offset some of these other unanticipated expenses. The majority, or the great majority, came in with technology. We do have to buy some Chromebooks and some editing software for the CTE program to about more or less about 100,000 that we need to purchase before the end of the school year. We also did not anticipate for legal fees to be that high, so that's almost another 200,000 that we had to increase in there. We were lucky that we reserved some of these funds, these other positions that we did not build, so I was able to offset some of those expenditures in there. So the net impact on the expenditure budget was an increase of 88,000. So as you can see right there on page 2 of that budget amendment handout, we are looking at, in the general fund, a deficit of 208, but I put a note right there that on this budget, we are not considering still any potential savings. So I'm looking at utility costs about a savings about 14% of we budgeted. On the transportation, 55% based on our the fuel that we've been consuming the last months. So those are at least in excess of 160,000 just in those 2 line items. We do have other items that the campuses might be able to have some funds, unspent funds in there. And since we put a cut in the supply purchasing back in April, so there are also some potential savings in there, which might able to, which would potentially wash off this estimated deficit, budgeted deficit. So the total proposed surplus in the combined general fund, nutrition program, and debt service is a surplus of 413,000. That's the budget amendment that you all just approved right now. So now let me go into the actual budget presentation. There are some important dates that we need to keep in mind here as we move towards the end of the fiscal year. The last time we reminded you all that TAA is supposed to put out a survey out there so that districts can submit their preliminary values and their state values so that the state can calculate their maximum compressed rates. And also just keep in mind that this is the first year that TEA is going to do this for us. They're only collecting this data from school districts. So every school district is supposed to submit their values by sometime on July the 18th, and we do have a pretty hard deadline there to meet August the 15th, so that the state can return those certified MCR values back to us, so that we now have a solid figures to estimate our funding or our revenue for the coming year. We do have a 10-day window in the event we are not satisfied with the MCR that TA returns. We can still appeal, but that's going to delay our budget adoption. So I'm going to, Mr. York and I are going to work as close as we possibly can so that we can submit our most accurate figures to the state and also with the, along with the appraisal district. The CAD is still to certify their values by July the 25th. And another thing that we must keep in mind that our current funding for this current year is based on a preliminary state value. So until August, the state will finalize that or certify, and then until September, we get our settled up monies or state funding so that we can now have final actual figures to finish off the year. But that's until September. Next slide. This is the data that we have so far from the appraisal district. We are looking at a preliminary CAD value of 2 million, which is an increase of 17.5 compared to last year, preliminary data. The CAD is assuming at this time a 6% increase in their protest, so they're reducing that value from what they have certified. So we are using a 1.9 estimated, 1.9 billion estimated preliminary value for our projections. We reduced our collection rate from 98 that we used last year to 96%. Year to date, we have already exceeded that percent collection. The estate value, if you remember last year, we did not have any mechanism to figure out where the estate was going to be or end up with this value. So they ended up going with only a 1 year comparison. So they adjusted in by the same percentage that the local value increased and was certified by. So basing on that assumption that they're going to do the same thing this year, we are assuming that 2.4 billion value, which is exactly a 10.5% increase. That way we don't have to increase our recapture in the event it comes out lower or higher next year.
If you remember in February, whenever the state comptroller came out with their value, our Chapter 49 payment Robin Hood went up by 347 or 360.
Right.
347,000. So, yeah, we're trying to play this little guessing game going on here. That's why these talking points for that next legislative session can be really critical.
Right.
The value assumption is based off what generally? On the state?
On a state comptroller, and used to, we would use prior year value, a real number. New legislation.
Ignorant here, value of?
Property
value.
Prior year property value.
I wanted to confirm that they're looking at our values in our district.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I
Yeah.
assume, but.
Yes, so every year they do a property value study, and the CAT is supposed to submit what they certify here, and what the state comptroller uses, or what TA uses, is the state comptroller value to do our funding. What Mr. York was saying is that prior to the HB3 law, we were using last year values, and that was a solid figure that we already knew. We could project on that figure, and this year we can't because we don't know what the state is going to certify that value to be, and we'll know that until August. So at the time that we have to adopt a budget. So the enroll, yes.
Last month, on the previous slide, did we talk about going real conservative? This may be splitting hairs, and if it is, I'm ready to move on. But did we talk about making that 95% instead of 96%? I do understand that we're at 98 this year. Did we talk about that being 95 instead of 96?
We said 96%, but at the same time, we were going to reduce our attendance.
Yes.
So that's
So
another,
attendance in this.
on top of this.
I see, okay.
You're in the
So
same.
we have a little bit of a formula going on there. So we're really on the conservative side, and we don't
Yes.
get too strict.
Yeah. So the next slide right there, you can see our projected attendance is based on 93%. We actually ended up with a 96.5 last year on the first 6 weeks. So the final enrollment for the current year, 2000 was 2,513. TAA is requiring that we adjust for the last 2 6 weeks of the fiscal year or the instructional year. So based on that, we have to use the 1819 historical data and then applied whatever decimal calculation comes out there to the 1920. So our TAA adjusted ADA comes out to 2348. Our projected enrollment based on real counts, student counts that we have from each of the directors is 2,517 students, and that at 93% attendance calculates a refined ADA of 2,362, and that's the figure that we are using for our state funding and recapture estimate.
Well, and I'll just add here, and I think Joe will agree with me, those are really, really conservative numbers.
Yes.
Because I can tell you, we have had bumper crop of move-in to the district and and contracts that are there right now over the last 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's a lot of activity.
It's crazy.
But it's kind of gonna be offset by some concerns over the
Yes,
COVID-19.
and I'll go over
Right.
those concerns with you, that we're, you know, I think one of the key things right now is tomorrow's 3 o'clock. Governor comes before him at 2 maybe, that's, you know, and then we've got Texas School Coalition, which, I'll just be real honest with you, they are on top of it. They really are, and they serve us as a Robin Hood school district. And some of their assumptions are based on comptroller comments, and so yeah, we just know that we've got to stay very conservative and just kind of toe the line here and see what's going to transpire between now and August 15th.
That's a good approach.
So this is the screen that you all saw the
Hey.
last time.
Excuse me, sir, can I go back to the last slide there?
Yes.
I'm sorry. So, final enrollment under 2020, 2019 to 20, that's 2513.
Yes.
Okay, and then you're projecting the enrollment to be 2517.
Yes.
You're talking about 4 additional human beings.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I like
based
it.
on
Okay.
what the principals have submitted.
Making sure,
so
my
far.
friend, making sure. Excellent. Not
But our
for your
funding,
benefit.
but do
for
keep in
mine.
mind that funding is not based on enrollment. It's based on
Based
the
on ADA.
ADA.
So we even dropped that from our 96% to 93.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
That figure, are those just kids that are in our district, or does that include transfer?
That includes the
That includes
transfer.
It includes,
Those are just
Definitely
kids in our
include-
district.
yes.
Everybody.
Yes. So this slide hasn't changed. We do still have the option of carrying forward the total 8 golden pennies, which we can add on top of our estimated or preliminary maximum compressed rate. The 0.8629 is the figure that we do not know until TEA releases this survey. So based on the assumptions that we have received on those preliminary values, our district growth rate is calculated at 1.147. On top of that, you add based on that formula, you add your 0.9164%, which is set by statute by TEA. So the preliminary MCR is 0.8629, and we add the 8 golden pennies that we are allowed to. We come up with a total M&O tax rate of 90.94 cents. Anything above that requires photo approval. Okay.
And so just remember, we were at $1.09, okay? And then the maximum compressed rate, that's MCR. That's what that acronym stands for. And we use the formula that was given to us to calculate this. And so we feel like we're pretty close, but there could be a lot of conversations between now and then.
So we're looking, just to sum it up, we're looking at a reduction in our rate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So this is the information that you all wanted to see last time. Yes.
You go back to
Go back
that
to
last
okay.
slide. Because I think
Just stay on there a
the
while.
point that Joe made just then needs to be emphasized. And of course, we still have a projection for 2021, but in 2018-19, we were at 1.3627. 2019 to 20, we're at 1.2892, and the estimate for 2021 would be 1.2221, which
Yes.
shows a commitment to reduce the tax rate on WISD's behalf.
And that was the whole purpose of the HB3, to reduce the taxes on the compression on the taxpayers. So that's what
Just
basically
remember
happens.
this. This is critical to remember. We've been down this road before. It was called acetar. There's no reason not to call it acetar again. So the difference between what we collected with the 93 cents and the $1.09, we should be receiving that difference, okay? So just keep that in mind, and that's all, I'm done with my
Yeah, so
soapbox.
they did acetar and lasted about 2 years, and then they, like, well, you don't really need that money. You need less of it this year than you did last year, and so that money slowly wanes away. That's why I was really concerned about raises and spending money and all that stuff, because I'm very concerned that the state won't keep up with their part and make us whole back to where we used to be. So
They pulled out of something even today that they said they were going to fund. And I didn't take, did you see that, Moises, what they?
Unless it,
Today, what exactly was?
was it the CARES?
Was it related to
COVID, CARES
Okay.
Act? Yeah. So we've got our,
Yeah,
we've
that was.
got our
that
allotment
was
already.
we've got our
last
allotment
week.
already, so.
Yeah, the days, that was the headline for today's papers. Not the Wimberley View, the State's.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the data that you all wanted to see. These are our estimates based on the maximum and the lowest end of the compressed rate. And do keep in mind that TEA is saying basically, regardless whether your maximum comes out lower or high, depending on the growth rate, you shouldn't see you shouldn't lose any state funding. Based on those figures, at the current year, we have collected 22.2 million in taxes. We should receive about 1.2 million in state aid. Our recapture increased to 1.8 million. Therefore, the net of that is 21.5, which is basically your local tax plus your state aid minus the recapture. That's the formula right there on that column. The maximum, the max that a school district can receive in MCR based on by statute is 0.9164. So based on that, the district would have to experience a growth rate of 4%. Well, we are way beyond that. So those are the estimated figures in local revenue and state aid and recapture if our MCR were to be at 0.9164. The lowest end that by statute that a school district can receive is 0.8247. At that rate, the local revenue is projected at 22.6 and state aid 1.3 million, but the recapture is 2.4. Therefore, the net of that is 21.2. If you take the difference of your maximum and your lowest, it's only a difference of 20,000. So it's kind of washes off with your increase. You experience an increase in local revenue and decreases in expense, and then your recapture. So it kind of washes us off, and that kind of goes in line with what TA is saying right there. You should not experience a decrease in funding. It's only going to be a shift from local to state.
That's where enrollment comes in?
Yes.
Enrollment plays a key role.
Yes, that's
in its
true.
entire form.
So based on our projection, our MCR is 0.8629, and since we experienced a 10.5 increase in value, we are I'm estimating an increase in the local taxes of 350,000 and state aid 143,000. But at the same time, an increase in the recapture payment up by 644,000. Therefore, the net is a decrease of 150,000 in revenue. So that's kind of the effect of the compression right there.
150,000 increase.
Decreasing.
Last year.
Yes.
And if you
Compared
remember,
to
House
the
Bill
first
3,
line.
in House Bill 3, our basic allotment per student was increased quite a bit. That's why we had that surplus this year. So there's already talk in the legislative session about that being decreased. We hope that that is not going to happen. That's another reason why we're being very conservative. Anyway, are you?
Yeah, that's the last line.
All right, I want to go through a couple of talking points. I think these are critical for the 87, oh, there's one more slide, I'm so sorry.
Just next steps.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
This is just the next steps. We will continue having our workshops, and the next one that we anticipate is hopefully after we receive the certified values. And at that time, we'll discuss personnel, which we haven't. So we're going to touch on personnel and any options that we have available, and also some items that we need to add there for as part of the new primary school. So that's yes.
Is the certified values date, was that June 29th?
The July 25th.
July 25th.
Oh, July 25th.
We can't wait till July 25th to have a budget workshop.
I know.
But we're not sure if there's going to be any new
I don't think we're
information
gonna have the
between now and
information.
then.
So
Is that
what
the
we're
concern?
hoping is that TEA and the governor is going to start giving us additional information. Right now, TEA is focused on, can you even start school next year normally? And then the comptroller, his comments, that's what I'm fixing to go through here. These are some of the comments that the comptroller has made, is that if the basic allotment is decreased, there's not a school district around here, especially those that end in June, July. I mean, how do you create a budget? We're like, yeah. But, I mean, we could surely have a budget workshop and tell you what we got at that point in time. This is Omar's latest template.
Well, and I mean, y'all may be getting, I mean, obviously it's gonna be a moving target, but we're anticipating getting some information tomorrow in a thing. There's a lot that we're gonna have to start thinking about and planning for, whether we have certification of that. We can be projecting based on our best guesses to start working through
Well,
some of
I didn't
this.
want you to, yeah, so
We
I
can't wait till
understand
July
what your concern.
25th to just
We're not saying
then
that-
start
yeah.
having that conversation.
We're saying that that would be probably the time that we have the most solid numbers. We can start having budget workshops.
With some
like-
contingencies and things.
Absolutely.
You know, I would say at least at our next regular meeting. We
Absolutely.
should probably have another budget discussion.
Yes.
Workshop. And if there's a breakthrough or some major development prior to,
absolutely.
you know, we might even decide we want to schedule one prior to that.
Sure,
Depending on people's plans, I think it might be a good idea.
yeah. No, not a problem. We can have as many as possible. I think that we're just, yeah, we're a little confused. I mean, by this time, Omar has sent out so many templates, and we hadn't seen that many. And so we're working off the most recent right now.
Okay. We can see, but I think at least at our July regular meeting.
Sure, absolutely.
We want to do as much as we can.
Definitely. We will
Okay.
definitely have one. So, one thing that has been discussed in the past that I really hope that the legislators will consider is that we seek funding based on enrollment and not average daily attendance, given COVID itself. So now if there's ever a time to get the legislators off of funding average daily attendance, which is your 93%, your 96%, is to fund that off of enrollment. So that's kind of at the top of the list here, not knowing what are they going to do with basic allotment. I mean, we keep hearing that, and no one's coming out and giving us any information about it.
Well, it would make sense because those kids that are enrolled, you know, we're gonna have to find a way to reach
Absolutely.
them. So even if they're not attending.
Yeah, there's
our
going to have to be
campuses,
something done.
There's still gonna be some way to educate those kids, and so we should be
Absolutely.
credited for those kids essentially.
And so out of this list, I'm only looking at the ones that really, you know, would allow us, you know, greater funding, is that we return to prior values to provide a greater amount of certainty in budgeting. Because notice what we did, on prior year value, that's a solid number. We always knew that we would be there. So we budgeted last year on just kind of an assumption. So we have this budget, and we knew what our Chapter 49 payment was, but then in February, when the comptroller came out with his number, our 49 payment raised $347,000. That's a pretty good little chunk of change for in the middle of a budget. You're not budgeting for it, just bam, you got it. So that could really help if they would do that. And then the last one is to allow for additional pennies, not just the single fifth penny without an election. That gives the board the authority to, approve. So anyway, those are the three that would probably most benefit us. Tax rate compression, there's some suggestion out there that maybe the legislators would be open to seeking a moratorium or delay on any future tax rate compression until we're through the crisis, or set at least an amount of time for that to occur, and then to increase the 2.5% cap associated with the tax rate compression. And then, yeah, I could go on, but those would really, there's one in here, how about saving, $400 some odd million by reducing testing, eliminate spending on standard testing not required, that we do that's not required by federal law, use diagnostic tests. And so I'll just stop there.
Dwayne, and Joe, stop me if you don't think it's appropriate under this workshop, but with all the potential variations of our operations going into the fall, are we going to dive into that to the best of our ability, parallel with this financial discussion? Because obviously they're hand in hand, right?
Yes.
On how we're going to operate. First, what are the state requirements?
Sure.
Which I'm sure we will have to comply to, and I'm sure there are things that we would rather have a higher standard than state setting
Sure.
in certain categories. And then try to figure out how we best operate, which has everything to do with the money we spend, how those dollars are spent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't been to a budget workshop yet at the school district, but is that kind of typically how it's done? And I would think more than ever.
That was pretty much what I'm referring to, is there's a lot of stuff that we need to be delving into.
Some ideas of
That-
A, B, C, D.
Right, that what are our different pathways with employment, there's a lot of stuff that we can be dealing with and looking at that have nothing to do with how much our budget's gonna be, because it's stuff we gotta do.
Right.
And then there's gonna be the stuff that the state says we gotta do. So going in, we really have to have an idea of what are those things. Like Owen for transportation. That's a huge part of our budget.
No, how are we gonna start school tomorrow is the biggest unknown. Because if you're gonna only allow 12 kids in a classroom, how many more teachers are you gonna have to hire? And then how many more buildings? And the outcry right now by the Texas Education Association for Rural Schools is that some of those classrooms are less than even Scudder's in square footage. And they're holding classroom sizes of 28 to 30 kids. What does that look like for them? Are they going to have to build a new building to start school? And so when you look at all of this, it becomes so overwhelming that we just try to stay focused on Wimberley. We'll use the revenue, the best revenue calculation we have every time we go into one of these budget workshops, and we'll just start moving forward like we have in the past. Personnel is about 86–88% of your budget, and so really you've got discretion over 12%, And so just keep that in mind. And yeah, we can, I mean, if you want to schedule one before even the regular board meeting, we could look at a date.
What's our fund
But
balance
how
right
we
now?
utilize that 86%,
Balance?
right? How that
The current-
force is used.
As
Yeah.
of the end of May,
Highest
it's
level of
12
education
12
and-
million.
and safety. You know, I
Much of that
just
is
kind of
on
sense in the community, and today till the first day of school is
8.9.
in this world that we're in right now is
8.9
million years apart, right?
8.9 million is
Lord
included
knows
of
what
that
happens between
figure he gave you.
now and then, but, you know, obviously, I think just over the past
It's
week,
here in your report.
well, I think rightfully so, we're gonna get a lot of questions from parents that sitting here just at school. We have a lot of thoughtful answers.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the different scenarios.
Yes, sir.
It's, you know, let's say that we have several kids that their parents do not feel safe bringing them to school, and you're sitting there and a teacher has on their roll, let's say 20 kids, and there's 12 in front of her, and there's 8 remote. That is going to be a heck of a challenge for that teacher to do distance learning at the same time, especially at the elementary level, because the priority at the elementary level is to place them in small groups throughout the day physically in reading, math, and even in science whenever you get up into the 4th and 5th grade. What does that look like remotely?
My initial reaction, just shooting off the hip, is if you have those types of numbers, maybe you have somebody who's just doing remotely, somebody who.
Well, and we've looked at that. We're a small school district, so let's say that you've got 7 4th graders and you have 7 5th graders. Do you hire a teacher? This would be difficult, but do you hire a teacher that can do 4th and 5th together remotely? And what does that look like? And I mean, you're just looking at some strange stuff. I am repeating what other colleagues and I have been discussing now ever since this has started.
Have you heard of the possibility of districts saying, if you can't show up on campus, then it's going to be hard to educate you? In other words, taking remote off the table completely.
No, I don't think you ever want to take remote off because, I mean, at some point, I mean, our goal is to do what's best for our kids. Okay, so you got to cut through all this stuff and say, look, you know, these are taxpayers. We've got to educate their kid. What does that look like? The majority, I will say this, the majority of parents that I've talked to, they want their kids in school tomorrow for the rest of the summer. I'm kidding, but I'm not.
And
They know
But there
that
is a
remote
contingency in our
Yeah.
community that are not going to send their kids to school right
Right,
now
there are.
in August.
I think it's a smaller contingency
It
though,
is.
and I can see that we would do like an AM class and a PM class
Yeah,
where we split
that's what
some
I
of
was-
that.
That's what we've
and then-
talked about.
And then we'd have that function at the schoolhouse and then a much smaller contingency at home. Hallie would probably opt to stay home. Her grade point average
She
went
did
up
so
by
much better.
700 million% just staying home. But I see that you're gonna have a lot of kids who need to come to school. Their parents need them at school. So, you know, when you can only have 12 in a class, you're gonna have to split that class and do an AM and a PM class. And
But we really do need to have a long discussion with the legislators about accountability. Because right now, we know there's going to be gaps. And so just moving into my report, I'll talk about that right now. So we've got our district improvement plan, and we're finalizing that right now. And so when you look at the first 4 to 6 weeks, that's all we're doing, is we're not assessing for a grade or some high test,
Right.
state test. We're assessing where do the gaps lie. And then a teacher is sitting there, and I want to use elementary because it is so complex at the secondary level, don't have enough time. Just think about elementary. So if I'm a fifth grade teacher, I've got some kids at 3.8 reading levels.
Yeah.
I got kids at 4.2 reading levels. I've got kids at 4.6 reading levels. I've got kids ready for fifth grade reading. How do you do that? You do that with small groups. Can you do that remotely? No. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Right.
I agree with kind of the pulse of the community. I feel that most parents want their kids to come back to school. I do also believe that a lot of that is going to be driven by current events at the time, right? Like, I mean, if we, I think if you took that last week, it'd be a different number than what it is today. If none of us had the crystal ball to say what that looks like, say August the 5th or August the 10th, and hopefully things pace down and steady out. But if you were to get a jacket increase, I think you get into another layer of constituents that are like, hey, hold on, what are we
Well, and
doing?
so-
I would hope that, and this takes resources, but I would hope that we could do everything that we possibly could do to get our kids back into our facilities and design some ways in which we give our constituents the best sense of safety and security, that their kids are healthy or reasonably healthy. I don't know what that is you do from a kid leaving home, coming into school, and how they
Well,
act in
Well,
school.
let me
TEA is
give you
going
an
to come
idea.
down with some standards.
DEA is going to come down with some
But, I mean,
standards.
we have 2,000
So,
kids.
once they come down with those standards, one thing that Alan and I have talked in great length about, we want to have a video series that goes out to our parents about every 3 weeks. We're going to start out with custodial and maintenance. Here's how your room is being cleaned. This is what's happening before school. This is what's happening after school. We will take the guidelines that we get from TEA and we will start having, just not me, I want every principal in front of a camera. And Alan and I talked about this. Here's what it's going to look like at Wimberley High School. Here's what it's going to look like at Jacobs Well. We could be on different schedules. We've looked at staggering bus routes for an hour. Well, so some kids would not be getting home until, they wouldn't be leaving school until 4:30, 5 o'clock. What does that do with extracurricular activity? And you got to worry about that because a lot of kids, they don't go to school for your science teacher, they go to school because of their extracurricular. So, funding being based on ADA, that's why enrollment would really help, this point here. Just getting through this period of time is so critical.
So I think, Will, the point of all of that is, yes, we're absolutely going to look at all of that and keeping those kids safe. And how do we do that with the limited amount of funds we have? So yes, that's why I think Tracy's so adamant about us having these workshops prior to having any kind of, because we need to look at all those contentions, we need to look at everything, try to, guess as well as we can. So.
But-
I'm not saying I support this or think it's a good idea or anything, but I know institutions that run high volume to doing this. Do you check the kids' temperature when they come to school? Or whatever those.
So I talked to
programs are.
Durrell about that.
I know privates that have done thousands of those of people running in and out of their operations, and I don't know if that's a good thing to invest in, frankly, right now. But
Well, so the state has now, they're allocating funds for thermometers, face masks. What else is on that list? What's this? Oh, desk partitions. So these 3 things are on there. We already know what our allocation is for face masks, for thermometers, and these thermometers. So Alan, do you remember that list? Did I share that with you?
Gloves is on there.
Yeah, gloves is on there too. These thermometers you get within, 4 or 5 inches, and Wow, it's,
I think the point that I want to make is, on the one hand, as board members, we feel sort of the responsibility to make sure that we're ready and that these contingencies are being planned for. But we have to remember, we have an administrative team that this is what they do all day, every day. So the fact that we're not involved in every little decision and aspect of the planning doesn't mean it's not happening. It means it is happening, and that you guys, we trust, will come to us as you need us to get involved and make decisions that particularly affect budget and some of the things that we are involved in. But on the other hand, we trust that you guys are responding daily as, you know, the world changes and as TEA, provides direction.
sure.
Well said.
And I would agree with that completely, but the other side of it is, there's at least 3 of us in this room right now that we've had several years of feeling like we were being pushed into a budget without all the information, just to do it. And this year of all years is more important than any time for us to be hand in hand all the way from now until that budget being passed, of making sure we understand and have been part of the financial budgeting process so that our kiddos have the absolute best possible coming year, whatever it's going to look like, so that we can do that. Because we just, as much as we had hoped, and I hate doing the I told you so, but the I told you so, we ended up with a $360,000 hickey on our Robin Hood payment that they promised us wasn't going to happen. And then in February, lo and behold, it did. So we have a healthy fund balance, but with some of the stuff that they're talking about, that fund balance can be gone like that. If we have to hire 5, 6, 8 more teachers, that pretty much takes care of the fund balance right there.
Well, those are the things that obviously we are going to have to be very involved in, and that sort of thing.
And I think the key for every single year that you're talking about, Tracy, is that when every year it seems like, think about the year that we were supposed to get certified on the 25th and we didn't get it until when? The last day of July, first day of August?
It was August 1st.
Yeah. There's so many things that are out of our control, and we're so frustrated that we feel like that whenever we do a budget workshop, we don't have anything different for you. Now, you can tell us to go, assume this, give us a scenario. And I think that that's what we're going to be in this year, is that here's a scenario we want you to consider, and then Moises and I will go back and we'll look at what that scenario could look like. Because we don't, we're...
And I think we all get that.
I'll just say that I think the rest of the board is here being interested, like we're managing administration. I want to be informed, though, particularly in this time of unusual events. And
Believe me, we're giving you the information as it's coming to us.
I just want to make sure you're never going to hear me say, at least with one board member, well, you're giving me way too much information. And also as a new member, I'm really just curious more than anything. I really want to understand it and be able to explain it and to defend the administration and to make sure people that we represent feel comfortable with their kids at this school, because again, we don't have any idea what's going to be like August 15th.
Well, some of my colleagues and I were talking the other day, what's worse, COVID or total silence? Silence. And that's, we're just waiting for that next...
What are we doing?
Set of guidelines. This is how we need to, because the guidelines are critical in budgeting right now. They really are.
Sure.
That has major implications, and I'm not talking 1 million, I'm not talking 2, I'm talking about 2.4, 2.5 million, and we lived that back in 2011. I know what that looks like.
I'll tell you one thing that I'm grateful for is we have Moises here, because I think he really knows what the heck he's doing. And I've sat through budgets where we had a financial person who had no idea what they were doing. We had budget workshops and we'd get completely different figures at every workshop, like, where are
That
we?
happened.
And that guy had no idea what was going on. It was the scariest
Well,
time in the world to be on school board, I promise you that, so.
And just for clarification, that was not Randy
Randall
Ralph.
Ralph.
No.
No, not at all. No, that was certainly,
This was back in 07, 08.
yes, it was certainly not Randy, I can tell you that. But,
We do appreciate your expertise.
yeah, I think Moises has really got a great handle on what's going on, so I'm very grateful for that.
and just from a historical perspective, you know, we shouldn't anticipate anything special from the state of Texas. I mean, they're in a hole. They're in a pretty big hole.
I think I said that many times last year when we were like, oh, we're rich. Like,
Oh, hold on.
whatever,
Hold up.
better be backing off of some of that, boys.
Well, and that was in one of the strongest economies we've ever seen in recent history.
Yeah,
If not one of ever.
yeah,
Now,
I get it.
we only tax 3 things in this state. That's basically energy, sales tax, and property tax.
Yeah,
And 2 of those taking it.
yeah.
So, that's it.
Well, property taxes didn't.
I
No,
said 2.
they're trying to make up for all those other two
Yes,
with
evidently they're
property tax.
they're trying to cover the loss of the other
Yeah.
2/3.
So we do have one more thing, and that's our adult meal cost.
Yes.
Moises, if you'll,
Yeah. So, the school districts are required that at least one time in every 5 years to have an audit done. The last time was about 5 years ago, and so since then, we have not adjusted the adult price per meal. So the expenditures to produce those meals are exceeding the revenue that we are receiving. So we are having to adjust our prices on adult meals only, not the student meals, okay? Just adult meals. So the current price for adults is $3.45.
Who pays that? What, when you say adult?
Teachers, visitors,
Teachers and visitors,
all
okay.
employees.
And employees, okay.
How many do we serve?
Let's see. In
Roughly.
this year, which basically served about 1,537.
Okay.
And that's because we finished pretty early in the year.
Yeah, gotcha.
So we are having to increase our price by from $3.45 to no less than $4.20 in lunch.
That's a heck of an increase right there.
And
Still the cheapest lunch around.
yeah.
It is the cheapest
And
lunch
breakfast,
around, but
it's currently at $175, but it cannot be no less than $2.13. So we are proposing that we increase lunch to $4.50 and breakfast to $2.50.
can you tell me one more time?
Lunch, $4.50.
No, what was it before? What is it now?
$3.45?
$3.45.
Yes, just $1.
Okay,
So, and the new proposed, $4.50. And breakfast, it's currently at $1.75 and proposed $2.50. And so we have a threshold that we cannot be under. And this is what we are proposing.
Any questions?
On top
I
of
know it's
that,
only a couple of cents, but I would much rather see us just go up to the next 5 after the no less than.
say that again?
What are you saying, Tracy?
So if it's no less than $2.12 for breakfast, then go up to $2.15 instead of $2.50. If it's no less than what was it, Moises?
$4.20.
$4.20, then $4.20, $4.25.
The only thing
But
with
to
that
go
is
up
that
so
we might have
much.
to come back next year and adjust it again. Because, I mean, the way we are experiencing the cost of supplies and things like that keep increasing every year, so. We might have to come back soon and adjust those
Why
prices
haven't
again.
we done anything in the last 5 years then?
Because this audit hasn't been conducted since about 5 years ago, so I'm assuming that this
So
is the
then
reason
we
why
would do
this
it
price is-
again next year?
We could. we could come back.
That's what I'm trying to understand. Why haven't we done it in 5 years to steadily increase?
I'm not sure,
Or-
I've been here
Wasn't
all
here,
the
Chris.
year, but
Huh?
we are gonna have to start doing that. TTA did issue a tool to estimate those cost per meals, and we are
Which
gonna
they have
start
not
to
had
use
in the past. And
Okay.
so we've relied on these audits, and every once in a while you'd get an audit, and it wouldn't be a full 5 years, it'd be like 3 years, and then we could see where we're at.
You can go 450 and not have to revisit it for 5, or you can do it incrementally each and every year.
But we're gonna revisit it next year anyway.
And there's
That's
a,
not what he said, if we go 450.
That's what he said. He said then we'll have to increase it again next year after the audit.
Yeah, if we went to 420.
420.
If we go to 450, he thinks we will not have to.
is there an administrative
It's the
savings
other way
to
around.
going up to 450 now versus going up a smaller, is there any kind of administrative savings or any kind of?
Does anybody pay with cash?
I'm not sure.
Because if
I'm pretty sure
anybody
they
pay
do.
with
I do.
cash, you're a lot better off going to 450 than you are at
Yeah.
well, 425 wouldn't be bad, but,
I paid with cash.
Yeah,
Terrell
I'm
pays
sure they
with
do.
cash.
yeah, yeah,
Is this mostly impacting our teachers?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And our aides and our staff that are there during the day.
Yeah.
The custodial staff in the evenings bring their meals with them. So-
Is that-
but
so
this
So
is-
as long as it's no less than what they're telling us.
Is that a budget line item that we would like to remain level just for this year and revisit that?
For this year, meaning 18.
20 to 21?
2021?
Just remain level and revisit it 21, 22, just, you know.
We can do
understand
that
the
every
times that
year.
we're in.
can we do that because of the audit?
It is mandatory that we do it.
So it's mandatory
Coming
that
year.
We at
we
least have to
increase?
go up to the 213 and the
Yeah.
420.
No, less than what
Mandatory
they
that we
told us already.
increase.
Yes,
Not mandatory that we
Least
just
two.
look at it.
No, it's
Right.
mandatory that we increase it.
yeah, according to the audit.
Because it's gifting of public funds if we're not charging enough money for their food.
Well, short of raising student lunches, which I don't ever want to do, I think this is a good compromise. So I would, I'm not ready to make a motion yet, but I would support the 450 and the 250. When the financial guy tells me that's the best option, we pay him a lot of money. I think he's probably got a good idea of what we need to do, so that's where I would be. Now, I know it's gonna be a hardship on some of those custodial people, but I think it's just where we need to be.
But when we know we're not gonna be giving away raises, it just is one more thing.
We have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
That's your motion?
I make a motion that we go 450 and 250.
We got a motion, do we have a second? Motion is second, any further discussion?
I don't like it. I'm not doing it because I think it's a popularity contest. I mean, I have to go by what the guy says that we pay to be here, so.
And with that, as I understand it, what you said was that we could do 420.
As long as it's not under.
And 420 would-
420 for lunch and 213 for breakfast.
But that would force us to revisit it year after year.
Yes, assuming that there's an increase in supplies, which usually is.
And would you anticipate increases annually?
Yeah.
So if we're looking at increases annually, why are we making money off of our staff?
And that's the reason why we're not
Right.
supposed to, we are not a profit organization.
Right.
So,
So if the minimum is 420, why are we going up to 450? If we're still gonna be revisiting this again next year? That's my issue with it. I'm not okay with us making money, even if it's a teeny tiny bit, off of our
Well-
teachers.
Well, I think where I don't understand is if you're saying Now, I understood Moises to say, if we go to 450, we don't have to revisit and probably won't have to go up next year. But if we go to 420, we'll have to revisit and make a raise next year. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. So he thinks the 450 would carry us several years into the future. Is that correct?
This current price did carry us for a couple of years, so
Yeah.
this is the first time that TDA has said that we need to adjust it. So I'm
Sorry,
pretty
I don't
sure-
have a problem having a 5-minute conversation every year about what the numbers need to be for lunches, so that's just where I'm at.
We're talking about 30 cents. We're talking about.
Yes, 30 cents between the minimum and where Moises went.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion?
Was that seconded by Will or?
Yes.
Will, everyone. Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? 3-2, Dottie. All right, we're gonna move on. Thank you, Moises. So on the President's Report, we're talking about the agenda calendar. We are going to try to stay after this budget and the budgetary process. We're also going to be looking at whether we need to hold any special meetings related to start of school, planning, decisions that the board would need to be involved in there, also probably related to the budget. So let's be mindful of that.
And I'll be sending out text and emails as we get this information so that we can get it posted in time. And so if you guys will respond to that so that we know we've got a quorum. And then if you don't mind, there might be a case where we get information and it's like a Friday or something, and I asked Dottie, would you please just go ahead and post a meeting? Because we can always cancel a meeting, and then that way if we don't have a quorum.
Okay. Good, appreciate that. The TASB advocacy resolutions, and then our ability to nominate board members to serve on the TASB board. I haven't received any interest from any board member in that. I'm not interested in that myself. So I guess we'll go ahead and I think our deadline maybe is up after this meeting. Is that right, Dottie?
Yes, for the advocacy, it is. And for
Okay.
nomination for the board members at the end of this month.
Okay, all right, so.
Does anybody on the board wish to serve in that position? Because I know I would be happy to make that motion.
Okay, hearing no interest, we'll move on. The next item on our agenda is a closed session. Board may adjourn into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071. The board may then re-enter into open session for further discussion and necessary action. Deliberation can include security devices or security audits, personnel matters, new hires, terminations, employee discipline, deliberation regarding real property, and consultation with our attorney. And the time is 7:43. Closed session into open. And do we have any motions based on items discussed in executive session?
We do. I would make a motion that we offer contracts for hire to Stacy Carroll, David Curry, Jill Bishop Jacobs, Melissa Legault, and Annette Hambright.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any-
Second is Ken.
Yes.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, I'm back here at Bank City.
That's
That's okay.
okay. Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. That's 5-0, Dottie.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.